This micro-credential addresses compression concepts in small engines and consists of 4 targeted skills. This targeted skill deals with troubleshooting compression problems within the power development system. The cylinder head is the beginning of an inspection tour. On older engines, the valves are alongside the cylinder and will not be affected by removing the head. On the newer engines, the valves are over the top of the piston and contained within the cylinder head. When the head is removed, the valves will come off with the head. Regardless of the engine version, remove the head bolts. The head should separate easily from the engine block. If it sticks, a small tap with a soft mallet should loosen it. Once all the bolts are removed, lay the head with the bolts on a flat surface. This way, you can easily identify any long bolts if present. Clean the matting surfaces on the head and block. This can be done by hand or with an electric or air tool. Be careful not to remove too much metal, just enough to remove the old gasket material. If sanding by hand, lay an abrasive sheet with the abrasive side up on a flat level surface. Now turn the head over so that the flat surface is down. Move the head along in a circular motion while applying a little downward pressure. Turn the head over often to ensure that the matting surface is flat, being sanded and cleaned of any old gasket pieces. Wrap the abrasive sheet around a flat block to sand the top of the cylinder. Only sand enough to remove old gasket material and to make sure it's flat. Now discard the old gasket and always use a new gasket when disassembling the head from the engine. A worn or broken head gasket is a common compression problem. Use a straight edge across the head and the block to ensure those surfaces are flat. If there is a warp or twist too great to be removed by sanding or machining, then replace the parts. When it's time to reassemble the head, you need to find the torque specifications and tightening sequence. These tell the technician just how much a bolt is to be tightened and in what order. Torque wrenches come in several versions. The wrench used here is called a beam torque wrench. Use it to tighten a bolt. As the bolt is tightened, the pointer will move to show the force applied. More sophisticated wrenches are available. They can be adjusted to a particular setting. When that setting is reached, the wrench will click or beep, alerting the user, and no more force should be applied. Torque is expressed in inch-pounds, foot-pounds, or metric terms, so make sure to use the correct value for the task at hand. Examination of the cylinder is next. It's important to determine if the cylinder is true round. If the cylinder is worn into an elliptical shape, the sealing of the piston and rings can never happen, and compression will be lost. A digital videoscope can be used to inspect the inside of cylinders without disassembling too many parts. This provides a good picture of the condition of the cylinder walls, but this method will not provide any measurements of the cylinders. Another way to check the cylinder is to run a cylinder hone down through the bore. The technician will have to do a great deal of disassembly. If the hone misses some spots, dark patches will appear. Those dark patches are where the cylinder is worn out of round. However, the dark spots will not reveal how far out of the round the cylinder is. Precise measurements will have to be taken with inside micrometers and outside micrometers, or telescoping gauges. Take 6 measurements inside the cylinder. 3 measurements go in one direction, starting at the top, middle, and then bottom of the cylinder. Take another 3 measurements going the opposite direction. All measurements should be the same. If the measurements are too different, the manufacturer's specs should be consulted to determine if a part should be rejected or is acceptable. Another problem with cylinders is scores. Scores are scratches that run top to bottom inside the cylinder. The scratches are caused by metal slivers, grains of carbon, or dirt being pulled up and down by the piston. No matter how far out of round the cylinder is worn or how severe the scores are, compression will leak past. These two conditions are the cause for declaring an engine not repairable. Now, several years ago, it was possible to bore cylinders to oversize. This is rarely done any longer because of labor costs and availability of parts. Next, the piston should be inspected. There should not be any scoring on the piston. Shallow scratches would be passable, but deeper scores would mean the piston should be replaced. Measurements should be taken on the piston like the measurements made on the cylinder. Top, middle, and bottom going in one direction, and then top, middle, and bottom going in another direction. All measurements should be the same. As before, consult the manufacturer's specs for reject sizes. The piston has no sealing properties of its own. It must be smaller than the hole it slides through in the cylinder. Rings help to seal the piston in the cylinder. There is a split in each ring called an end gap. Outside the cylinder, the end gap is wide. Squeeze the ring together and insert it into the cylinder. Observe how much that end gap shrinks. Push the ring down into the cylinder with the piston. Make sure one of the grooves in the piston is showing evenly all the way around. This ensures that the ring is level for a more accurate measurement. Use a feeler gauge to measure the end gap. If this gap is more than any one single leaf on the gauge, put 2 or more leaves together. A snug fit indicates the correct measurement. Again, check the manufacturer specs for reject sizes. If the measurement is close to or over the spec on any one ring, replace the set. Rings are only sold in sets, not singly. Compression problems can occur in the power development system. Understanding how to diagnose problems and repair them is very important. The inspection process can take a considerable amount of time. Labor costs can be high, and replacement parts can get expensive. Considerable thought needs to go into the rebuilding or replacing decision for all engine repairs.